Welcome back, Space Fam. Today's story is a wild one, so buckle in because my life just went up in flames. I just found out that my wife, my partner of 10 years, has been cheating on me. Never in my life did I think I'd end up reading, let alone writing, something like this. But here I am, spilling everything, partly so I have it written down for myself, and maybe so someone else going through this kind of nightmare can take something from it. I'm going to lay this out the way it unfolded, piece by piece, because that's how my suspicion grew and eventually led to the truth. This is still fresh. The final confrontation happened last night, and I didn't sleep at all. This is the most humiliating, painful experience of my life, so I made a new account to post. For context, I'm 34, she's 36, and in less than 2 weeks we would have celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary. We've been together more than a decade, and until recently, I thought we had no cracks. No fights, no separations, just love and fun. Family vacations, little businesses we built up together, projects around the house, and most importantly, our 2 young boys. Life felt incredible. Then came her new job. Last year she interviewed at a highly respected long-term care facility. She got the position, offered to her by the man who would become her boss. Ever since, she's spoken about him in glowing terms. How much he values family, how he believes in her, how he's pushing for her to succeed quickly. On paper, everything sounded great. But over time, small things began to feel off. There was one night in June that I'll never forget. She'd gone out with coworkers after a golf fundraiser. She told me she'd be home in an hour. Then another hour passed. Then another. I was pacing the house, panicking. We share locations on our phones for the sake of the kids, and hers was stuck on the side of some busy road, nowhere near where she claimed she was. Her phone went straight to voicemail again and again. I was on the edge of calling the police when she finally rang, saying she was on her way home. She explained her phone had died, and she'd been in a coworker's car without a charger. I wanted to believe her. She had never once in all our years failed to check in with me like that, so it shook me. I told myself it was just her trying to fit into the social side of a new job, even though my gut screamed otherwise. As the months passed, other changes crept in. She suddenly became obsessed with working out, talking about wanting a bigger chest, spending longer in the bathroom every morning. For the record, she was already stunning, fitter than almost anyone I know. There was no need for these changes. But I watched as she seemed to transform her priorities. Then August arrived. One day she invited her boss and a few coworkers over for drinks after a race they'd all run together. I thought, finally, I get to meet this boss she keeps praising. They came over, and my alarm bells went off instantly. He's much older than me, close to 60, but fit and handsome for his age. Still, something about him was off. He couldn't look me in the eye, barely spoke, his hand was slick with sweat when we shook. He seemed like he couldn't get away fast enough. My gut screamed at me, it's him. Later, after everyone else left, she said she was going out to meet a friend for her birthday. She'd been flip-flopping all week on whether to go, but suddenly she was excited. She got dressed up, kissed me goodbye, and drove off. She told me she was headed to the east side of town. Out of habit, I checked her location and saw she was at her workplace, or rather, at a small tucked-away building across the street from her main office. A place she had never mentioned. She stayed for under an hour before coming home, smiling too big, acting strange, but overly affectionate. She even jumped on top of me, saying how much she loved me, and we slept together right then. In that moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Could she really have been with someone else 10 minutes ago? I pushed it away, told myself I was being paranoid, told myself she must have stopped there to make a phone call or something. But I knew in my heart something wasn't right. And that was only the beginning. Over the following weeks, more pieces started falling into place. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but in the back of my mind, something just didn't sit right. Our boys were attending summer camp, which happened to be on the same campus where my wife works. Because of some stressful situations at her job, sometimes I had to leave work early to pick up the kids, and other times, her coworkers would watch them for a bit. More than once, I learned that her boss had my kids hanging out in his office, giving them snacks, letting them play on his computer. They actually got to know him pretty well. My wife often mentioned how grateful she was for the support from her new team, how much she loved working with them. Not long after, we took a family beach trip with her relatives. We spent the whole week on the sand, taking the kids on bike rides and enjoying the time together. Honestly, it was a good break. But as soon as we got back, the work chaos returned full force. Right away, my wife asked if I could pick up the kids one evening because she had plans with her coworkers. That threw me off. It was our oldest son's very first day of kindergarten, and we had just returned from vacation. I couldn't believe she wanted to go out instead of being home with him after such a big day. She told me one of her female coworkers was going through a rough divorce and wanted to organize a small golf outing followed by dinner and drinks, plus catching the first preseason football game. What struck me as odd was that this coworker supposedly booked a hotel since she lived far away, and my wife casually mentioned maybe meeting her there before the golf game to catch up. It sounded strange, but I kept my thoughts to myself and agreed to cover the kids. Keep in mind, their after-school program was literally at my wife's workplace, only a few minutes from our house. I worked 40 minutes away, so it wasn't exactly convenient for me to leave early and drive across town just to do pickups. Still, I went along with it. The day came. We took pictures that morning for our son's big first day of school, walked him down together, all smiles. But my wife seemed distant, distracted, unlike her usual self on big family moments. Normally, she's all in on milestones like this, but that morning she rushed through it, hurried back to the car, and sped off to work like she was late for something. Later in the day, I left work early to make the 45-minute drive. But things didn't go smoothly. Road construction slowed me down, then unexpected traffic piled on. I was running late, stressed out. Sitting there, stuck in traffic, my brain started racing. Why am I the one picking up the kids today? Why isn't she here for her son's first school day? Why does this work outing matter so much? I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. That made no sense. She knew I was handling pickup. Why ignore me? Then it hit me. She said she might meet her coworker at a hotel before golf. A hotel. My gut twisted. Am I overthinking? Am I just being paranoid? I couldn't help myself. I opened the location tracker on my phone. My stomach dropped. It showed her at a hotel in the city, not anywhere near the golf course. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she really was with her female coworker. Maybe they were just at the hotel bar. But why there? I called the after-school program, panicked about being late, and they reassured me not to worry, the kids would be fine. Meanwhile, my GPS route to their campus took me right past the exact hotel she was at. My heart was pounding. I was 10 minutes behind schedule, but debating whether to swing by the hotel and see for myself. Just then her location moved. She was leaving. By sheer coincidence, her route out of the hotel put her car on the highway directly past where I was exiting. My chance to see her. But in the chaos of traffic, I didn't spot her car, or the car I knew her boss drove. My mind was spinning. She had been in that hotel for over an hour. I felt guilt for tracking her, shame but also terror. Was this really happening? I finally grabbed the kids, about 10 minutes late. I was rattled, still asking myself why she hadn't returned any of my calls. Back home, I tried to focus on the boys. We had dinner, laughed a bit, took a goofy picture together shirtless on the couch. I sent it to her. She texted back, "Gosh, I love you guys." That calmed me a little. Before bedtime, I suggested we FaceTime her, something we rarely do, but I wanted to see her surroundings. She answered, smiling at a bar. I scanned the background, half expecting to see her boss. At first, it looked like he wasn't there. Relief washed over me. Maybe I'd been wrong all along. But then one of my sons piped up. "Where's the guy who gives us snacks at the office?" My wife panned the camera, and there he was, her boss, grinning, waving at my kids. My chest sank. After the call, I tucked the kids in, still reeling. Later that night, she came home full of gratitude. She praised me for taking care of everything, told me how much she loved me. We ended up having sex that night, and it just felt twisted, confusing. I felt used. 3 days later came what I can only describe as the smoking gun. We were in bed on a Sunday morning, planning a family hike. First thing, she rolled over to grab her phone. Nothing unusual. except she was glued to it for a moment before jumping out of bed for her morning run. While she was gone, I went downstairs and opened her iPad, the one we share for music. And that's when the truth began to unravel. The night before, an update had run on the iPad, though I couldn't be sure whether that had anything to do with what happened next. Early in the morning, I opened Apple Music to play something light, and right as I did, a text notification slid onto the screen. It startled me because I'd never seen messages appear on this iPad before. The preview was from her boss, full of emojis, and it said something along the lines of, "Good morning, bae, it's a beautiful day for a run." Without really thinking, I tapped it. That opened up the thread, and the next thing I saw was a message from my wife, sent to him immediately after waking up. My chest tightened. In a panic, instead of saving it, I deleted the message. The second I did it, I hated myself for it. What the hell was I thinking? But it was too late. Still, the truth was right there in front of me now. My stomach dropped, and waves of fear, betrayal, and disgust took over. When she came back from her run, I was furious but tried not to explode. Instead of yelling, I repeated her boss's text back to her in my own words. The look on her face was pure shock, almost as if she had seen a ghost. I led her into the dining room, sat her down, and stared straight into her eyes, just inches away. "What's going on between you and him?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. He's just my boss. He's nearly 60. She looked pale and rattled. "We've got 2 little boys in the other room," I said. "What are you doing?" I laid out what I had seen. She swore it was nothing, that bae was just a playful nickname everyone at work used, and that she and her boss only had a friendly Apple Watch competition. She claimed she had mentioned to him that she planned to run, and that was why he texted. She begged me to believe that nothing inappropriate was happening. I walked away, torn apart inside. Part of me regretted speaking up at all. If I had kept my cool, maybe I could have let the texts keep coming until I had undeniable proof. Instead, I'd forced the issue into the open too soon. But the thought of living in secret surveillance felt wrong too. I desperately wanted her just to confess on her own. The drive to our planned family hike was painfully silent. She acted off the entire time, and I could feel the tension radiating. We did the hike, mostly in silence, the kids eventually dozing off on the way back. Once they were asleep, I brought up that morning's message again. I told her how much it was eating away at me, how getting a text like that first thing on a Sunday morning said a lot about where her mind and his really were. She admitted that, yes, it looked bad. She didn't deny the appearance of it, but stuck firmly to her claim that nothing was going on. Still, the image of that hotel room I had discovered earlier burned like fire in the back of my mind. Later that evening, after the kids were down, I thought maybe some wine would loosen her up and get her to open up more. But even then, she denied anything physical or emotional beyond friendship. She reassured me over and over, and I was left frustrated and unconvinced. Nearly 3 weeks later, everything finally unraveled. I woke up one Saturday morning with a sickening vision of her with another man. It was the morning of one of the biggest events my business puts on all year, but all I could think about was her betrayal. The unresolved questions had been torturing me for weeks. She went off to the gym with the kids, something we always used to do together, and I headed to the event. I was supposed to be focused, yet every detail of that hotel reservation I'd stumbled on gnawed at me. At one point, I even dialed the hotel, praying the clerk might tell me it had been booked by her female coworker, like she'd claimed. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't go through with it. I hung up after 2 rings. Deep down, I already knew. The event was chaos, and I buried myself in the work, but the ache never left. By the time it was over, I debated rushing home to see her and the kids, but I didn't. Something in me had changed. The next morning, Sunday, we had plans to watch football at her brother's place. I had to run into the office briefly, and she was supposed to pick me up afterward with the kids. As I packed up my things, her iPad caught my eye. It felt like it was screaming at me. I sat down and opened it, hands shaking. She had figured out by then how to sign out of iCloud so there were no text threads. That in itself was an obvious red flag. Then I saw her boss's contact card. She had been sharing her location with him, and even toggling it on and off the night before. My stomach flipped. I checked her photo stream. Nothing unusual. But then I opened the deleted photos folder. And there it was. Lingerie shots she had taken the morning before her first day back at work after vacation. Photos I never received. Clearly they were for him. This was so far outside her normal behavior, I knew instantly what it meant. Then I found what looked like an accidental screenshot. Part of a text exchange between her and her boss from the day before the hotel booking. They were planning lunch, layering it with hearts and flirty words. His final message read, "I've been waiting to see you since last Friday when you left. I'm waiting for you, babe." That was the knife in my chest. I checked her browser history and sure enough, she had Googled how to say "one more day" in Spanish around the same time she had sent those underwear photos. It stung because it reminded me of how she used to flirt with me back in our early days. That spark, that playful energy, was now going to someone else. At that point, all my denial and rationalizing collapsed. There was no room left for doubt. My life had just split into a before and after. She later arrived at my business with the kids, and we went to her brother's together, but I was in shock the whole time. She could feel it and kept asking what was wrong. The visit was unbearably tense, me barely speaking, her clearly nervous and waiting for the other shoe to drop. I couldn't sit on it anymore. I texted a business partner of mine, who also happened to be one of the most respected divorce attorneys in the state. He called me right away. I walked outside and poured out as much as I could, stammering in disbelief. He calmed me down and said the only path forward was to sit her down, lay out the evidence and let her face it. It didn't matter how I'd gotten the proof. The reality itself was what mattered. That night, after the kids were asleep, I waited in the kitchen. The silence was suffocating. Finally, I asked her where our marriage was headed. I told her outright that I knew she and her boss had crossed a line, and that based on everything I had uncovered, there was no way to deny it. She didn't sob, but she did crack. Without much hesitation, she admitted she had been feeling disconnected from me all summer. That was the start of her confession. It all started back in early June. At first, she brushed it off as something harmless, but when I pressed her, the truth started slipping out piece by piece. She admitted she and her boss had kissed. At first, she tried to downplay it, fumbling over the details, pretending not to remember, but the more I asked, the more obvious it became that she wasn't telling me everything. Eventually, I found out they had gone to a hotel together. She swore nothing more happened, that they only kissed, that she just couldn't go through with it. But I wasn't stupid. I knew why two adults went to a hotel room. I asked her again and again. Why the hotel? Why him? Why on that day? She swore that was all it was, that she couldn't cross the line into sex, but her words felt meaningless. It wasn't just about the kiss. It was the planning, the lies, the manipulation. She made me leave work early that day so I could pick up our kids, just so she could sneak off to a hotel with him. And of all days, she chose the first day of our son's kindergarten. That hit me harder than anything else. She sat there saying she wanted me, wanted our life, wanted our marriage, all while confessing that she'd gone behind my back, that she'd been living in this secret world with him. And while she claimed she didn't know what she was doing, I kept remembering details, messages, times she left early, odd excuses, that business trip she had been planning with him. It was obvious none of this was spur of the moment. They'd been plotting it, probably for months, while we were smiling for family photos on vacation, while we were sitting together on the beach. That night was the worst of my life. She crawled into bed and cuddled me like nothing had happened. It felt revolting. I lay there stiff, awake, for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I searched the internet desperately, hoping to find some story of a couple making it through this, some example of hope. Instead, everything I read told me the same thing. It almost never works, the trust never comes back, the damage is permanent. For the first time, divorce became a real thought in my head. By morning, I was shattered. She hopped in the shower, and I collapsed. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sobbed until my body gave out, and when I finally lifted my head, my youngest son was standing there, fresh out of the bathroom, just learning to use the potty. The thought of him hearing me broke me further. I tried to compose myself, but then my knees buckled, and I sank to the floor in front of him, holding him tightly, weeping. My other son came in and saw me like that too. For the first time, instead of me holding them while they cried, they held me. The sight of those innocent boys, completely unaware of what their mother was doing, wrecked me more than the betrayal itself. How could anyone be so selfish? How could she throw away her children's stability, our entire family, for something so cheap and meaningless? When I finally pulled myself together, I went downstairs and made coffee. I could barely breathe, barely think. She came down like nothing had happened, like we could just carry on. We sat at the table, ate breakfast with the kids, both of us trying to pretend things were normal. Inside I was hollow. At one point, we hugged, away from the children's eyes, and cried in each other's arms. She knew how serious this was. I told her flat out it would take a miracle for me to trust her again. That 10 years of our life together had just gone up in flames. She promised change. She said she canceled the trip with him, that she was stepping away from the program that kept them close, that they'd barely see each other anymore. None of it mattered to me. I'd already seen too much, already caught too many lies. She wanted to show me she was serious, but the damage was done. Later, I walked my son to school. Watching him run into the playground, checking over his shoulder every few steps to make sure I was still there, nearly broke me again. He loves me so much, depends on me, trusts me. And I couldn't stop thinking about how, on his very first day of kindergarten, his mother had chosen a hotel room with her boss over being there for him. That realization hit harder than anything else. This wasn't just betrayal of me. It was betrayal of our children, our family, our life. As I stood there among other parents holding hands and smiling, I felt like everything I had worked for in 10 years was crumbling in front of me. In just 12 hours, my entire world had changed. And even though the thought of splitting up feels unbearable, the thought of staying feels just as impossible.